And that's what it is. It's not a documentary about how we build community. It's a reality show, which is just drama about people, trying to live together.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
How's it going? I thought that was the best one yet.
Yeah, absolutely. We finally got to see people doing stuff other than just arguing, though that was, a good portion of the episode. But
Yeah,
you got to see the dumpster diving. You got the message of like there's so much food waste in there,
yeah,
and which is a massive problem. I wish it didn't take 4 episodes to get to this.
right, right. Especially with like, how much I guess there was all this criticism about like dumpstering, but like they didn't talk about the like actually like we throw away 2/3 of the food we grow. Like dumpstering is really important and good, like um so I'm glad that we kind of got to that with this episode.
Yeah, and I know people like for myself, I was thought like, why cannot you just put some legislation forward where you force grocery stores, restaurants to make it illegal to dump so much food waste in the dumpster, and you have to pair up with, a food bank. But this is a country where people they'll sue you over the littlest thing.
The thing is, though, like a lot of businesses will use that as an excuse, but the fact is that there's actually a law going back to like 1986 called the Good Samaritan Law that says it's not possible to hold businesses accountable for a sickness that results from uh, illness from food that's expired that's been donated. So it's actually been
Really?
since the 80s that they can't be held liable for. They're just making shit up if they say that's the reason why.
That's actually really good to know because I get that as a response all the time.
Yeah. I don't know why my
Huh.
goes backwards.
I think a lot of it, for at least certain restaurants, and they don't want to give away their food. They rather have people come in and buy it.
Yeah, and there's also like there's this famous example in Portland where they hired security guards to guard the dumpster because people were eating the food. And it went so far that the grocery store was actually pouring bleach on the food in the dumpster. And they were sued and it became a huge thing and it was in the media and I don't know what ended up happening, but like it's a huge thing. These companies just want to artificially inflate food prices as much as possible. They don't care about people being hungry. They could solve that problem overnight if they wanted to. They'd rather waste half the food, 2/3 of the food, than see hungry people eat. And that's why 1 in 4 kids goes to bed hungry in America.
I mean, we could even give people, I don't know, tax credits for donating your food if they think in a capitalistic sense,
We
like
already do.
something.
We already do. And we also give them the same tax credit if they throw it away or if it's stolen. They get tax credit for all of that.
Then what? Then why not give it away and be good?
Because then the prices would come down and people wouldn't be motivated to go work in a cubicle all day and rent their next meal. That's the only reason.
Yeah, that's crap. Tempo, what's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. I caught most of that, most of the show. Um, right now, just getting a bunch of personal projects up and running. The business that I talked about earlier, getting ready to launch that in January. So
Oh, yeah, the
that's
worm.
exciting.
Nice.
There was actually people in one of my videos the other day talking about you and your worm business.
Yeah, I had a meeting with them like a week ago. Yeah, it was really cool to see like we have a mutual friend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I definitely thought this was the best episode so far. I thought they did a really good job. And I like
I
that
thought we looked pretty good in it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was really nervous about how they were going to portray the conversation I had with Tyler, which I was not aware was being recorded. And
Yeah,
Tyler
and
said
to
this.
tell you the truth, when I walked up to you, I was actually that wasn't guided or anything. I was actually like, I felt like you were one of the few people that I knew for a fact that was in my corner. And I was like, I need you to like, what are they saying? Please, for the love of God. I need, like, this is
Yeah.
actually killing me, because that was real. And then I noticed I was looking at Annie whispering into her mic, and then I realized all around us there was like 2 to 3 different cameras. I was like, oh shit.
I saw one of them crawling underneath the bus to record, and I'm like, what the
I
fuck?
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Putting the operator in camera operator.
Well, and like
Yeah.
before that, the agreement was absolutely no recording of anyone without explicit consent. And when I saw that happening, we were halfway through the conversation. I realized like they're not following the rules. So if the rules are out the window, like what is this conversation actually, and like how is it going to be depicted, and like what do I want to do? Like the rules are out the window. What do I want to do? Do I want to just like walk away from this conversation, or do I want to like, you know, be really careful about what I'm saying, but still say it? And so I did, and I'm glad that it came out right, and it sounded good. I
Yeah,
remember being really nervous, like, how did I say that? I hope it doesn't sound like I'm mean or something.
yeah, and they definitely made me sound more jerkish, like, and how I came across this episode towards Tyler.
And true.
Uh,
Yeah.
like they didn't show any, like, there was so much more to that conversation that we had in the woods. Like I even like came and like we shook hands before I left. They didn't show that. I shook his hand before he left the property, and he apologized to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he actually apologized to me off camera. And he's just like, it was just for the cameras, man. I was like, well, you still said it.
I love how he was like he went, the first thing he proposed at his first council, which they almost showed, is that he wants to paint Confederate flags on everything, and we said no. But then the last thing as he's walking out, he's like quoting Martin Luther King. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
So wild. And it's hard to separate like how much, like, he made all these videos talking about like, this is my character, this is not real life, like I'm getting paid to do this character. But I gotta think most of that is real, especially the stuff he was screaming on the phone all night long, every night.
That's what I'm trying to tell people. He is not getting paid as an actor on the show. He's getting paid for his his point of view. Yes, he is a professional actor, but he didn't come on the show as an actor to play a certain. It just so happens that his point of view and his personality ended up being a character that was very not likable on screen.
Yeah, I mean, he said he was there to play a character.
No, he's not. Like, I've
He could
talked
be
to him.
wrong,
Like,
but he said that. Yeah.
I know. Like, and if he was full method acting at night then when he was off camera, because he was exactly the same when he's talking to his wife. Like, whoever, when you're talking to your spouse or your partner, whoever, that's who you really are. You're not making sure, like, I mean, there's probably people listening to me right now. I should probably be in character.
I
No,
mean,
that's exactly who he was. Is just, there is, when he would, like, that scene when he was leaving, I guarantee that was like, he was told to go have a conversation with a tree before you leave. And he, really blew that out of proportion and said all the nice keywords. And they're like, oh, who's the leader? You're a cult leader. This, all that crap.
Yeah.
I mean, he really said that. No one told him to say that, but like, that was, he was already leaving, so he didn't care. And he was just kind of like, fuck
Somebody
it.
who was in the watch party here was like, I love how as soon as they like are done, suddenly it's a cult. Right. As soon as Naraya got voted out, suddenly it's a cult. As soon as Oak decides to leave, suddenly it's a cult. And it's like, if it's a cult, you can't leave. Like, you have, like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, political parties and most religions are more cultish than anything near intentional communities.
People are asking, where is it streaming? It's really confusing how it's streaming. It's going to be on everything after the finale, which I think is in 2 weeks. Currently, it's on Discovery Go, but not Discovery Plus, and it's on Hulu and Philo. And then it's going to be on everything, including HBO.
And Sling.
Sling, yeah.
And it's eventually going to be on HBO Max, which is going to be a brand new audience.
Yeah.
Because cable television is one particular audience, and then you have the HBO Max audience. So
Yeah.
hopefully it does well.
Yeah. I think it'll be good.
Oh, speaking of cult stuff, so the conversation that I wish they would have showed more of Tree and I's conversation at the end there.
Yeah.
Because there was way more cooler things. So what I was referring to in my community, we were
Did
talking
you
about if
really
the
say you
world.
want to be a cult leader?
So what I said, so the context of that conversation is if the world ended and we would bring people into a community, but there's going to be rules because that's our property, our land. And so yeah, he's like, well, that sounds very dangerous. Like, well, yeah, it's private ownership. It's if you really think about it, it's kind of a dictatorship. Like it's my way or the highway, and that's where that conversation stems from.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, so like right now, this property that I'm on in the mountains, like there is like two people that own it, and so it's their way or the highway. There's nothing wrong with that. But if the world ended and we brought people in a community to help them out, so that way they don't die, and that's where that conversation was that
Yeah.
we would lead these people, and he's like, and then I don't think that was quite edited correctly. That was a soundbite where like that's a cult,
I
and
think it was.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was edited correctly because there's
Yeah.
so many of these interviews where it's like 2 hours of fluff, and then suddenly it's like, okay, crazy hypothetical. What would you do in this situation? And then that's the thing they're actually going to use. They just want to get you comfortable and then get you to say something crazy, and then that's like the only part that actually makes it into the
Yeah.
show.
I mean, but
I still
I guess after being on the show, I was thinking, bucket list. I guess I could be a cult leader. I've done many things in my life. But I guess cult leader could be one of them.
I still read your response or saw your response as one of like, I'm giving people a hand up, but they have to like accept like a certain conditions on it, or certain, like on even terms. Because it's not like you just give stuff away for free. It's like if you have a certain level of self-sufficiency, you want to bring people up to that level, but they don't just jump to it instantly. There's like a sort of process of onboarding kind of. And you want
Right.
it to be overseen by someone who knows what they're doing. And yeah, but that was my my friendly viewing of it as someone who's met you and knows you.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Because right when it ended, I was like, oh, now I want to be a cult leader, apparently.
Did you say yes to that question, or did they splice the yes from a different question?
No, like I honestly I don't remember saying, yeah, oh yeah, that's a cult leader.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I
want to be a
want.
cult leader.
But no, I was just like, it sounds like it sounds like a cult. I was like, I get if that's a cult, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think most people don't even truly understand what a cult is. Like, if someone came on my property and we had a community because the world ended, you're free to leave at any time. You're just not free to do whatever the hell you want.
Cool. Yeah.
There's a sort of, I mean, you build something up and then you extend that to other people. And there's
Yeah.
Well, it's like
there's
social
a,
contract, right? Like that's
yeah, yeah.
every
And it's something that there can be like people that resent you for being, but they're resenting the fact that there was something there already. Like there, it's all a process. Nothing just emerges right away.
Yeah.
And sometimes when there are very few people involved in the early creation process, then sometimes that means that there are informal hierarchies that arise. And you can either say, we're okay with those informal hierarchies, or you can say, we're going to do something actively to minimize those hierarchies.
Yeah.
Dan says, sounds familiar. Yeah.
Dan says what?
Sounds familiar. Yeah. I wonder if they're going to get into like, there are legitimate criticisms of this group, right? And there are lots of like legitimate ways that it deserves praise, and there are things that go really well, and there are things that don't. And that's what I was hoping. That was my charitable, well, not this one, but the official one at the top that you guys can't see. The official byline of the show is commune or cult, and I was like, okay, there is a charitable reading of that byline where it's like here's a community. There are good aspects and bad aspects. How do you spot them? What's the difference? And like, how do you do it right? Like, that's actually an interesting story. And it kind of feels like we're not really going to get into that much. Like, it's mostly just about the interpersonal drama, which is, it's like, okay, that's fine. Because then it leaves room for us to all talk about it ourselves. Or not, I mean. Personally, like, my take is like, in the past, when I've joined organizations, it's typically been with the goal of like trying to make them less horrible for people who they're horrible for. And
Right.
I just feel like at some point it's kind of wasted effort. Someone asked me, I have a friend who's like a high level activist who's Black and transgender and really into intentional communities and also indigenous, and asked me, like, why do you spend so much time trying to help people that don't want to be helped? Like, why don't you focus on making things, like making life easier for people who need life to be easier? And I'm like, oh, like that. Well, when you say it like that, obviously that's what I should be doing, right? Like, I should be focusing on building something new that's better and more healthy than instead of, you know, trying to fix things that don't want to be fixed. And initially, I think that's what attracted me to the idea of the Permaculture Mutual Aid Network, for sure, which I was one of the founding members of, like, years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
How many years has the P-Man been going?
I want to say 3 or 2.5. And we actually started the TV show like shortly after that. We did like our first interviews. It was originally going to be a Netflix show, because this is like already a year after the viral stuff where everybody was getting death threats forever and stuff. So like a year after that, we decided to do all these new ones that we've done. This is the 6th one we've done now, and we started filming for what was then going to be a Netflix TV show about how to do intentional communities. Netflix paused all the pre-production stuff, and at some point in the last year or so, it moved to Discovery, and it became whatever it is now. And you know, it was interesting because like the first interview I ever did, they were like, "How do you reconcile, you know, your affinity for anarcho-syndicalism with Tree's affinity for egalitarianism, and like how do you?" And I'm like, how do you even know that? like where did you get this information? You know, but like I really feel like having the project focus rather than fighting over building your dream home together is like a way better way to approach these kinds of projects. If you're focused on like, let's do these solutions to problems and focus on solving problems rather than like, who's the king of the hill that gets to live here forever and whose friends don't get to stay here with them, and which is kind of what these oftentimes become. And obviously we see that, and I've said that in the scene that I'm in this one, you know, that there was this contingent that was really interested in cementing power for themselves over the project once it was over, and they're the ones that don't want new people staying after it's over. And the compromise was like, Tyler doesn't want to live here. He just wants to finish the like construction project. Like, what if we say can stay until the end of the filming and until the end of construction? And then everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. That's perfect. So that was the compromise that we ended up with that passed.
Right.
They didn't really explain that in the show.
No.
But like you do get like a lot of these projects turn into like fiefdoms where there's like one clique that really wants it once it's done and wants to control the decisions that happen about the land and the what gets built. Yeah, exactly. Zan says staying until the end of filming was not explained. And the thing that like my favorite part of that whole council was like I started out with a pitch, which is what we ended up with, but everybody disagreed with me. which was like, why don't we just say everyone who's involved in production can stay for the duration of production? Like, this rule is only being applied to one person. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody's asking about all these other people who've been here for a month. We never voted for them, right? And they're also leaving when it's over. Like, how is this different? Why do we need to apply this rule to Tyler? Because he's seen as some kind of threat to a certain clique, you know? And
Oh, was I a threat to to
yeah, the St. Louis
yeah.
clique. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean Heather said that in the show too, you know. But as soon as they were like, no, we're not doing that. We're voting specifically and only on Tyler. Because what we don't know about these other people, we don't know if we want them to stay. We don't want to give up our right to kick them out. It's like it would be the same process, right?
Yeah.
So you passed, obviously, and then immediately one of the executive producers steps out and it's like, I have also been here for 10 days and I want you to vote on me.
Oh yeah.
And Zant is like, I blocked the process. And I started laughing so hard that I was crying because it's like, now we're not allowed to talk about any of this anymore. Everyone can stay. Like, they have effectively shot themselves in the foot by making it this like one by one thing where now like their whole process is short circuited and they've lost all control over who can stay that easily, right? And I thought like that ending was like so chaotic and so good, and it like undermined the assumption that these people should be deciding who gets to be here and not everyone. I thought that was, I really wish they would have included that, because that would have been like the most interesting example of group consensus of like, yes, one person can block hunting, but also one person can block assholes, right?
CJ, I remember a couple months ago watching one of your TikToks where you get really into a kind of theory of group dynamics, where you say that the people that have the power in a society or a subculture are the people that, not the people that make the rules, but the people that decide which rules get enforced and which don't.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of counter or a sort of inverse or converse to that, where someone extending and asserting that a rule won't be enforced when they're not the enforcers, but they're closer to the people that the rule will be enforced on. That's also a kind of power. And there are many valuable uses for that kind of power.
What's an example?
I'm just referring to what you're just talking about this particular council, about trying to say, okay, are we really going to go through like a rigorous 10-day process through everybody who's involved with this film crew, without which we probably wouldn't be here on the same agenda or time frame?
Yeah.
Like we're kind of a condition of us being there, at least by that time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that topic is called sociology of law. It's something I'm considering doing a PhD in someday. It's really interesting.
Of course you are.
It's like the
how many degrees do you have, CJ?
I have finished 9 and I'm currently doing 2 more. But I'm almost done. And then
what is your IQ? I know you'll never boast about this on your own, so I want to force you to answer this. What is your IQ?
There's different ways of measuring it. I did take an IQ test when I was like 15. The one people typically, sorry.
I think a good answer is how many different areas do you excel in? Because for everyone who's has a really high level of intelligence in one area, they might have a low level in another. I'm a big fan of the theory of
that's true.
intelligences. Like
that is
for instance, I have a really high verbal intelligence and a really high mathematical and abstract intelligence, but my ability to perceive how things move, especially my own body, like anything that's martial arts or dance, I'm terrible at. And so there are lots of trade-offs. I see everything in the brain as trade-offs. I come across all sorts of people that know way more movie lines and song lyrics than I do.
Well, first I would say IQ tests are bullshit. IQ tests are like SAT tests. testing for proximity to privilege. And so that's why they include words like regatta, because who's racing sailboats, right? And that's why the further you are from being like an able-bodied, affluent, native-born, Christian, heterosexual, cisgender man, the lower you will score on SATs and IQ tests for the same reason, because it's testing for proximity to being that person. And so the further you are from that, the lower you will score. In terms of like what is intelligence, there was a study that was done at the Santa Fe Institute that was like really good. They're like, okay, if you like, what is intelligence? How do you measure it? If you give an IQ test to an octopus, what does it tell you about the octopus? Absolutely nothing, right? It's not an objective measure of anything. Typically, what we think of as intelligence is working memory, which is not innate. It's something that you can exercise. It's very common, for example, for kids in China to memorize pi to like 3 million digits. You can learn how to do that. It's not something you're born with. It's plastic. It's like muscle memory. You have to use it to have it. My highest one was nonverbal reasoning. I was in the 98th percentile. And my lowest one was empathy. I think it has to do with like growing up as like a closeted gay kid in a Christian family, and like you sort of forced into being this kind of sociopath who has to like hide everything true about yourself all the time and like be hyper vigilant all the time, and like I also have PTSD, and I think like I've worked really hard on trying to be more empathic since I was 15 when I learned this about myself. But yeah, definitely for me, the highest was nonverbal reasoning. Not so much verbal reasoning, but nonverbal reasoning.
Yeah, I think my military wise, I took the ASVAB, and you could have any job that you wanted if you scored a 115, and it's called the GT. No, unless you know what I'm talking about, it's not going to make any sense. But 115 is a really high score for a GT score, and I scored a 135 in like the mechanical portion and like pattern recognitions. Like I can like the two pictures that one's correct, one's different. What's different? And that's something that I easily pick up on in just life in general.
Everyone's messaging me. I wasn't paying attention.
I think that's probably what makes me a really good hunter, because I can spot animals that are supposed to be camouflaged, but I can pick them out of the forest.
ASVAB is like a standardized test of how good you are at certain kinds of jobs in the military, right? Armed service vocational aptitude.
Yes.
Battery.
My brother took it and he ended up in the bomb squad.
Yeah, he probably scored really high in the ST, the skill technician score.
Yeah, I don't know.
You got to have like a 115, 120 for that, or
he made it out okay. So
all right.
I mean, he did get injured, but he's a lot. I'm really concerned about other Tyler, about how he was portrayed in this episode and the kinds of things people will say that I think will be like cruel and not necessarily on point with like the things that he actually deserves criticism for, which is like the way he treated other people, for example.
Right.
Especially like the thing where it was like, oh my God, why would they show that? When they had him stand up off of the trailer and the whole thing like falls over like a seesaw.
Yeah, well, I mean,
oh
to
my
be
God,
fair,
why would
it
they
did that
show
to me also.
Right. It's not loaded, it's empty. So like it would do that for anyone, but like him is like depicting him as hi. So I just hope people are nice. I hope people are not like cruel about that, you know.
Hey guys.
Hi.
I finally figured out how to get in. I'm sorry I couldn't figure it out again. I don't know what keeps happening to me. But...
Welcome.
Yay. What are we talking about?
Episode.
I loved this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was the best one.
Like they could have painted that dumpster scene way worse. I heard that it was like one of the grossest dumpster days of anyone's life, and so it could have been like.
Oh my God! So magic like was covered in juice when he got back. Like he had soggy bottoms, like from like his butt down to his legs, and he lost his raccoon tail, whatever he was wearing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Based on what
yeah.
I saw before that, I was imagining like demonic music with like dumpster raccoon magic, and like I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be like the scariest episode ever. It was fine. It was cute. It was like, and everybody's like trying, like it's like everybody growing, and I don't know. I like this episode so much better.
I thought they made them look cute and like good and like not like it wasn't scary at all. Especially
they were
Magic,
constantly
like,
intercutting with like quotes of like people being like, this is actually kind of cool that there's all this stuff in the dumpster. I don't know. It was like they were like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm doing this, but also like talking about food waste and talking about, so that was really cool.
Yeah,
it wasn't just like, look at these weirdos.
Yeah.
So
it was good.
So we didn't really find a whole lot while the cameras were there. So we actually still dived for another 2 hours after the crew went home, and we ended up pulling like 200 pounds worth of food back to the camp.
Oh, it was a haul. We took out the wheelbarrows, I remember.
Yeah, we had like 2 wheelbarrows full, and plus just stacks and stacks of food.
Yeah, that was crazy that they skipped. I saw Zans just said, where was Ricky's intro? That was crazy that they just skipped that. I was like, if I was a viewer right now, I'd be so confused because he's clearly also talking to the camera as a new person.
Right.
So why is he just suddenly appearing?
I saw in this episode, like Heather, it jumped between her first day and her 4th day, as it said, or in the caption of it. There's a lot of things that are all over the place.
A lot, yeah.
Like Tyler,
I mean,
with the 2 Tylers and me at the trellis, that was your first. That was like,
yes,
that was the first conversation we ever had.
It was Tyler C's first day.
But also, like, we talked about like the Viking stuff. I remember that was like our first conversation.
Oh,
so
that's funny.
It goes back to like
I think they wanted to make it look like you were like, I'm in now, and then you're like, this guy better get to work. Like they tried to make it look like it happened.
I know.
Right,
I was like, you guys y'all made me sound so jerk, like a super like hard ass and jerk.
Yeah,
I did
think. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just thought that the editing was so funny that it was like you got consents into the community, and then it cuts straight to like Ren yelling at you.
You ruined it.
So funny.
I love that that's the only. That's the only footage of Ren so far because she was like so eager to be on camera.
Yeah. But it was such a Ren moment too, when she's just like fed up. She's just like, like it was so funny.
Captured her essence.
Yeah.
It's still wild to me. The last time I saw her before that, she was like a baby, and now she's fully talking. She's like a whole person now, and it's like, oh my god, it hasn't been that long.
Yeah, it's wild. I just got a letter from her where she's writing full letters all over the page.
Oh my god, wow.
Cool. I never seen her write any letters. It's so cool.
So someone says, are all new members featured on the show actors? Was any of their backstory real? The answer to that question is controversial because people disagree about the answer. Tyler Covington says he was an actor who was paid to play a fake character.
So I can actually, and for me, I don't. Part of my personality is that I'm very direct, and I don't like to lie. So Tyler Oak, or whoever you want to call him, he is an actual professional actor, but none of us came on the show to be paid as an actor. They want, like, I asked so many questions, like even I was in the hotel waiting to go to land. They wouldn't tell me anything because they wanted my reaction to be so like 100% organic, and they didn't want to lead me with anything. They wanted the actual experience and our reactions and our conversations to be real as possible. Yes, there are guided
backstory, like when you guys were at your home doing background checks on people.
That's
what they asked.
Guided.
Yeah, guided.
Yeah.
Guided.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, like, to Sheila, right? Like, I just saw a thing that she was just like, just started my first movie, right? Like, it's like she clearly is like pursuing being on television, but I don't think they created a role for her. But they were like, oh, you also are into prepping? talk about that, you know, like they picked a point of her personality and they made that who she is, but that is still a part of her, and that is still her husband, that, you know, and that is still everything. But yeah, they kind of like, guided who you actually are. But they still, like, I mean, everyone that Discovery casted for the show did live with us when the cameras went away. Like, there's, you know, everybody was genuinely experiencing it. It wasn't like they were pretending to in any way, you know.
Like, you would do background checks and stuff. It just happens that when they were recording it, they were like, let's talk about this, or like, you know. But that really
no, like I never, because you guys don't go by regular. I didn't know, like not until like last week, I didn't know what Tree's real name was, so I can't actually look up anybody's name.
It's in the credits. I mean,
yeah,
I don't stay around for the credits.
I saw it on his mail and I felt bad for learning it.
It's his real name. Yeah, I mean, we got clean records, so there's no.
Yeah, no, like that stuff. Like,
so now everyone knows it.
Yeah, no, we didn't care. We honestly didn't care about any of that crap. I was seriously just down because this, like I truly meant it like a wet dream for me as like a prepper to come to a piece of land and just help build it up as an off-grid community. And I'm so glad it ended up being what it was. But I'm just a little disappointed that it took 4 episodes to get to like the really good stuff about what the community is about.
They finally talk about the kitchen. They finally, like, it's just like, oh, cool. Yeah. What the hell are we doing? Like that, you know, literally, there was none of that before. Right. Zan said what credits? I think they just credited, they put like me and Tree's names in like a slash because they used a lot of our YouTube videos. So they had to credit us for that.
Yeah, I noticed that like none of us are in the credits. It's only the like Annie and, you know.
Yeah, I don't think they credited any of the cast, but they use a lot of our YouTube footage, even in the trailer. Yeah. I'm glad they credited us.
Juliet, the scene with you and Jessica where you're cutting stuff in the kitchen, that was probably my favorite scene of this episode.
I feel like that was like my redemption arc after my like evil villain end of the last episode. I was like, thank God I do a good thing, because I was like, oh my God. And then the beginning of the episode where it's like, I mean, like, we're having that conversation, but then I was like, I was on your side the whole time. It just sounds like so fake because they like showed the, I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, Julie's gonna get so much flack.
Yeah, I like that. I'm like smiling. I'm like, oh my God, I look so fake. But then it's like, okay, now I'm Jessica's friend. It's like, all right, cool. Yeah. I'm coming back.
My brother was like, it's fucked up to do that. And I'm like, no, there's no way we would have gotten a yes without doing that. There's no way we could have gotten the people on board who were gonna block it without talking to them first and finding a compromise that they would be okay with. There's no possible way. And if we would have brought it to a vote, it would have been everyone screaming. Like, it would not have worked out.
With like, Tyler?
Yeah, like back channeling is the only way that could have worked out.
Well, there was this whole other thing that was happening that some people thought that we had already consented that everyone would leave at 10 days. Like, that was like the main thing that I was trying to like figure out. I was like, okay, some people, like, I remember Shine leaving and me and her had this whole conversation in our bus where I was like, I really think Tyler should stay. And she was like, we already agreed that everyone was leaving at 10 days. And I was like, yeah, but can we like adapt? But like that she really didn't think so. That's kind of what you're explaining in the beginning. And so I was trying to like be like, all right, if that's what one person thinks, then let me just get everyone on board with that so we don't have to argue, whatever. I kind of explain it in the TV show. I mean,
yeah.
But it's like a complicated thought process that was happening in 30 people's minds, and you know, and so it's like hard to like show in the amount of time that they have of like why we all said the things we said and did the things we did. But
I think it ended up looking good.
One of the things that brings up is like the strength of, or sometimes lack thereof, of the consensus process, which I think this show does a little bit to call attention to, but we do and still operate by a sort of passive consensus where we assume consensus if no one continues to raise objections. And there are, I think, when after the film crew left and we were setting down like the actual like ground assumptions, the ground structure of the new commune, that there was we decided that for bringing new members in, just a passive consensus wasn't enough. We need like an active recommendation, because it would have been really hard to just keep going with the passive consensus. We want to be very intentional, even more intentional in our intentional community.
We adopted that at the garden sometimes too, that like, because it's always changing at the garden in Tennessee, but we've done one where it's like you need like a sponsor, like you have to find somebody that's been there for longer to actively say, hey, I think this person should stay because this. And I think the idea of that was like, you know, it's not just if you can't stay, it's because we don't like you. It's like, if you can stay, it means because someone is saying, hey, I really think this person should actually stay. Like, it was trying to change the energy around, like, assume that you're leaving, but if somebody nominates you to stay, then, you know, but then that ended up creating weird dynamics too, of like the sponsorship dynamic, you know, it's like
my sponsor.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like the trial and error of that I don't think worked out very well.
Yeah.
But
look what
where's Tree at?
He's downstairs.
He said he was gonna join.
I'm so
Tree
glad
and Julia
they
called
put
to each
Zans.
other. If you ever hear that in the forest, Tree and Julia are looking for each other.
I am so glad that they put in, because the whole time when we're out on the property, the
Oh yeah,
was like our call for everybody, you know, to answer back, and it finally showed.
Yeah,
I honestly forgot about it until I heard it in the show, and I was like, oh yeah, we did that. So cute. Yeah, this episode made me feel good. It's like, all right.
Which makes me think that, so it seems like they're really big on story arc. So first, you know, the premiere, first 3 episodes, it's like, oh God, this sounds really bad. A lot of drama. And then, you know, you still got more drama. And then now you got, okay, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully that keeps on going. And at the end, they show a lot more projects being done, a lot more.
You saw the title of the
friendships.
next episode, right?
What's that?
You saw the title of the next episode yet?
The
Garden Fractures.
Well, that doesn't help what I'm saying.
It says 2 teams with different visions threaten to split the unified collective. Team Tree versus Team Patrick. I don't think Patrick was even there anymore at this point.
No. Patrick. So Patrick left for the garden for like the fall gathering for like 10 days, and that was like early on.
But that was like way before Jessica got there, or
Yeah.
What, when he left?
yeah. So it's
when he
the
left,
story is
within the first week.
Who knows?
I think they come back like it's like there's 10 days that everybody's gone, and then so they come back on like to Sheila and Jessica's like last day, pretty much. Because I don't think that they were there the day that we to Sheila did her 10 days.
How many episodes will there be in total? It's a total of 6, so there's 2 more.
Damn, it's crazy. We're almost at the end. It's funny though, because it's like, I mean, it's been a whole emotional journey for me, but I now, having seen ones that I like, I feel a little bit like relieved, and almost like the first ones don't even matter. And I hope it's like that for the viewer too. You know, like maybe the story kind of takes you on a journey where it's like that's the way a story works. Is like the beginning doesn't become your lasting impression.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, there he is, Jack Forrester.
You got your government name on there again. Yeah, so it says Team Tree wants to have a big party. Team Patrick wants to work on more work instead of having a party. Jessica and Tashila have their 10-day council. It also spoils the ending of that in the episode description, so don't read that if you don't want to know. And then it talks about Shine keeps vetoing the storm shelter, leaving the garden vulnerable. I mean, Vibe, not Shine, Vibe. And
But Vibe is gone. Vibe never came back, so I don't know how they put Vibe in that episode.
I think they're just gonna, it's all Tarantino.
The splicer in, yeah. This
and then
wasn't
something happened. And then they're gonna. I've heard that they did a bunch of scenes with Naraya after she left, and it looks like that's
yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying no more.
Tyler's dark secret.
It's an icky scene that I'm not proud of.
You guys had a threesome?
Huh?
He makes out
with Jessica
in the dark.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding.
No.
Sorry.
And just for those that are that see in the trailer where Heather and I are laying out naked and Jessica's sitting there with us talking.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I'm offering ourselves to Jessica, and that never happened.
I know that never happened. I would know if that happened.
I asked Jessica, I was like, Jessica, like, did I really say that? And she's like, no, I would have remembered that.
They needed some alluding of some sexual romantic, because we were all so coupled up. There was no romance in our entire show.
And Tyler's only into girls with real boobs, remember?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're just gonna gloss over that scene.
Damn tree. That's the first thing
you're gonna say.
It wasn't me who said that, man.
You said that, Tyler, on the show?
Did I say that?
He said that Naraya had fake boobs. But
fake boobs, yeah. Hippie Barbie with fake boobs.
There's a lot of memes of that.
And fake dreads.
Fake dreads?
I don't think he doesn't mention her fake
dreads. No, he didn't say that. Sorry. I was just putting it out there.
You're saying that.
I was making an entrance, okay? I had to come in shockingly. Sorry, I love you.
It was interesting to see your conversation with Oak.
Oh my gosh, wasn't that a scene? Oh my gosh, I think it's a redemption arc for me. I was calm and collect.
There was a crazy because
you looked good.
We were just I was just in the van, like live streaming, and I just started like knocking on the van. And I was like, oh shit, this is a scene right now. I better be on my best behavior. And I think I did good. I mean, it's true, like the accusations that he is putting onto me, he's like dangerous. It's not okay just to like come to some land with a group of people and start to like say that, like you're like an evil demonic person that's trying to control people by saying I'm some sort of cult leader. Like it's not just like something to throw out there willy-nilly. And it just seemed like he wanted to put that out there to be like this person within the show. And this was a documentary, like we were meant to be documenting reality. And so it was just like really annoying. But I'm glad he left. And he seemed to be happy leaving. And so that's good.
You also had a whole lot better self-control there, and you looked better, and I think it'll show. It looks like you are like adapting and like that just within a little over a week, maybe. Because if I'm going to look at my chronology, it's going to be 2 weeks, about 2 weeks from the time that Naraya left to the time that Oak left. I think.
Like in real life.
Yeah, 2 weeks of actual time. Yeah.
Wow.
There was this moment.
Yeah, I think you bring up.
He said something like really wild to you, and you like step back and cross your arms, and you like look down and look up at him and kind of smile. And I feel like whatever, I don't remember exactly what he said, but that's gonna make a really good meme. And then like him leaving.
it's clearly ridiculous, and your reaction shows that you're just like, what's going on right now? Like, really, you're like, because there's really no lead up. Like, you're only. I think that's why they kept like they showed like previously, and they showed your microbe scene is because that's like the only other scene that you guys have had together. Like, he has almost no basis for like this random accusation. And so it looks really ridiculous in that scene.
Well,
and you also make a good point that, like, it would be creepier if we were just like being extremely friendly and trying to absorb everybody into our group. Like, it's like a normal thing that we are not getting along with everybody because we're normal people, and that's how life works,
Right.
And also, the fact his accusations about, like, if you don't fit in with the group, then they don't want you around. It's like, that's fucking every group of people in the world.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't conform, you're out. It's like, no, it's just like,
no, that means it's not a cult.
It's just like, if you don't get down with anything that we get down with, then we're probably not going to be friends.
Yeah. And like, that's allowed, right?
Yeah, and you're free to leave. And please
just
we would
go.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, he needed that paycheck, remember?
Well, your response was very good. It was probably the best that could be given. I mean, the best response is, you're not happy with it. I mean, it's not my problem. Go ahead. Go.
And he's like, you're a bully. And you're like, how? How have I bullied you?
The U.S. government is the biggest bully. I'm so happy that made it in. Oh my gosh. Rancid. Oh my geez. Well, I mean, yeah, I love the US. I love the US. I love living here. I want to be a part of this country.
Yeah, watch what you say.
You're gonna have someone, Men in Black, knock on your door tonight.
Hey, I believe that, no offense to anyone who has took their own life, but I would never take my own life. You heard that, internet? I would never do that.
If the government does it for you, you mean?
I would never. No.
You're talking about COINTELPRO again? This is not a topic.
Are you paranoid?
I'm talking about our Discovery Warner Brothers organization that has affiliated with a lot of child lovers in the past. You know what I mean? So it's like, who's the real dangerous organization here? Is it a group of people on a piece of land trying to grow food? Or is it a huge corporation that is trying to create narrative and story about how we're supposed to live? You know, like I question the child lovers, not the people in the forest.
Yeah. Okay, that's valid. Okay, what else is in the episode?
But I guess I am a little perturbed that, because even my family that was watching was like, who's the little guy? Like, where did he come from? Like, Ricky didn't get an intro.
Everyone that I was texting who didn't know the story was like, what? I think a lot of people are going to be confused.
Yeah.
In fact, this is something that we were wondering about, like, kind of in the moment, because he was brought in like at night, like almost, I want to say the same day that Jessica was brought in. Maybe
it was the same day.
It was.
So Jessica was brought in like the middle of, like, maybe 4 p.m. and then Ricky comes in at like 10 p.m. maybe afterward, maybe even after midnight. I can't quite remember. I remember it being late, like late to the point where even if we would wanted to even if we'd been position, if we had been like active and all like awake to do that, it would have been difficult to organize, because it would have been like it was situated in time where we couldn't do what we did for Jessica. And we were wondering in the moment of, okay, this young white girl from LA, she gets a parade, or but what we didn't do the same for Tashila or for Ricky. And the answer to that was, we didn't get as much advance notice. We just didn't. And that's really the only thing that was the difference.
Well, and they like don't tell us. Someone just arrives, and they're like, "What's the reaction?" Like when Tashila came, she like they didn't really, they kind of showed it, but she like drove up and like straight through the middle and like across into the woods. And everybody's like, who the fuck is that? They're
Yeah.
parking their like Mercedes into the trees.
Yeah.
And
I
then we
think
had
that
to go find her and we like staged a whole meet and greet. But like it wasn't,
that
we
if
had no
people
control over that.
like, it seems like if there's like specific plot points that they can follow with the people they brought in, they highlight them. And it seems like, Tyler's got his story, Oak's got his story, Tashila is like, and then Jessica. But then I think like because Jessica and Ricky came in on the same day, I think their main like thing that they did was like also like kind of building with me. So it's like it might be repetitive to show Ricky do that again. I don't really know what other like plot points they might have just kind of, because in the next episode description it says to Sheila and Jessica do their 10 days. It doesn't mention Ricky. He might just not have done anything that like that they just decided not to put him in or something like that.
There's too much going on.
Yeah, there's other stuff going on. Yeah,
I mean, it's sad.
Right.
That's like, I guess that's the business, like we went into this show not knowing that only certain people would be mic'd. We decided that we didn't want to go through like like a talent kind of like agreement, which is usually how a TV show works, is that like they pick like 6 or 8 people and they're the talent and that's that. But we didn't want a show that's like highlighting just a specific people. We wanted to show like the whole community and everyone. And then we get there and that's not what it's about at all. They're focusing and only miking up a certain amount of people. And I guess that's just the business of making a reality TV show, is that like sometimes you just can't tell a story with that many people. And I guess they had to cut Ricky out of it too because of that.
Hopefully, because there's actually a lot of good scenes that he had, and one of them is that I took him survival fishing, and we end up catching out of that pond. We end up, as soon as the hook hit the water, we had a fish on it. Like I'm talking about within like 2 seconds, and we pulled like 6, 7 fish out of there.
Wow!
Out of the pond on the land or a different pond?
No, on the land.
Wow!
They must have been like, oh, they weren't used to fishing, so they were like, this is real.
Huh. Someone asked in the chat, wow, only 6 episodes out of 2 months of work. It doesn't seem like it would be equitable to cut 2 months down to just 6 hours. Knowing everything you know, would you do it again? And what would you do differently?
If we got a piece of land out of it, I mean,
yeah.
I would steal everyone's phone. Smash them.
Steal my phone, Tree. Steal my phone, please.
That would be every episode's story arc. Tree steals another phone.
He can't help himself.
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah, no, they had a lot of footage. I think they had over 500 terabytes of footage.
Wow.
And they had to scroll through all of that and just kind of, this is what you get out of that much footage, which is an insane amount of footage.
Yeah.
It is. I don't even know how they go through that.
It must be hell. I mean, you must get paid a lot because it's tough work
to find the best shots. Because there's so many like 2-second shots that just like I love tonight. I forget what it was. Oak was like bitching about us, and then it cuts to just like Soul smoking in the trees with like the smoke coming out. Like that, someone like found that and was like, yes. They're just like
Soul every time for these kind of like offshoot clips.
Soul is pure aesthetic.
Yeah. When Naraya starts doing her like cosplaying, he's like sitting there and he's like it's so perfect for memes.
Yeah, or it's just like time to leave the garden. It's just like Soul walking shirtless across like the field, just like he kept like he has all these like sexy shots. It's so funny.
Someone said they feel like Tree was redeemed in this episode.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
why we're
think
so
so.
happy. I think we both had a little bit of a redemption arc.
Yeah, Tree actually messaged me for the first time ever. I have sent him so many messages over the since filming, and he's never seen them, not once.
He wasn't.
And then
That's always been
immediately
our
after the
That's how you
episode,
know.
I
That's
get
how
a
you
message
know
from
that
him. It's like,
he's
that was
happy.
great.
He's all in Nepal.
I was like, he's really happy. He's messaging people.
I did. I messaged like tons of people. Was like, it's a good episode. Like, what the, like I'm just like super socially anxious about my whole life and everything. That I always feel uncomfortable talking to people online. But I'm sorry,
Tyler, it's really not you. Like I like
Oh, I
accidentally
know.
look at his
You
phone
already
and
told
I'm
me.
like, Tree, like you have like 30 unread messages. Like answer these people. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You told me while we
Like,
were filming, like you literally have to force Street to text people back.
I'm his secretary. I don't like it, but he doesn't answer people.
I'm still waiting on a reply from him from a week ago. So.
I will not show my tits to you in a private message, CJ. Stop asking for that. Sorry, I'm just joking.
Just feet. Yeah, whatever happened with your feet project? Are you still doing that? Do you want to plug it?
We need to become like uber famous. Like right now, like we're like barely hitting the TV, like let's see how it goes. We got to make people want them dirty feet.
Yeah,
Crazy.
some years
But Tree,
ago.
you know how to make that happen, right?
How do I make that happen, bro?
Egregia season 2.
Oh, look at you. You're working right now? You're working? We're just having
like, now that
fun
I
right
have
now,
you.
Tyler.
Okay, quick pitch.
What would it be?
The exact. So if there was a season 2, the only way I can see it actually happening is if
You and
got
your wife
another
are in
piece of
charge.
land and we do it all over, and the tagline is not commune or cult, it's on the river or Lost in Paradise, something to do with the land and the project versus like the drama of like, is it a cult or not?
Yeah,
that would
because
be
like
great, but
we're-
I'm going to tell you something. No matter what they say, we have no freaking clue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they'll be like, yeah. Lost in Paradise sounds great. Let's go.
I think like
they buy us an island.
it could have been worse. It's not that bad at this point. I mean, it's not over, so who knows? And it's not like they could make it much worse with an additional season, right? Because everybody kind of like has a feel, has a vibe.
That's what's messed up. Is as messed up as their lies and everything were, I'm like, well, now I guess the only thing I can do is keep redeeming. Like, it's just like, I'm like,
that's the fucking point, Julia. Exactly. So it's so smart. As a paranoid person, I can't help but think like, if they make us look a little bit bad, we're gonna want to redeem ourselves. We're gonna want to come back and be like, I'm actually this person. So
Anytime a TV show asks a question, the objective is not to answer it. So you keep watching.
right. I guess I can't say what I think the ending will be, but
it's just hard to be like do a project with people that actively lie to you.
Yeah.
They actively said that it had nothing to do with the storyline of us being a cult or not. Not just that it was called The Garden, Communal Cult. We specifically said that we wanted the name The Garden not to be anything to do with it because it puts our lives in danger. Yeah. Secondly, it was called Communal Cult because that's what they filmed. They filmed so many interviews of people being like, is it a cult or not? So it's not like they just came up with this title of the TV show. Oh, what should we call this? They directly created this narrative and this storyline and lied to us saying that is not what it's about. Yeah. So it's hard to do a project with people that are actively lying to us. Will they own up to their lies and say, yes, we lied. This is why. This is what we had to do. Will they be honest to us? Because like the reason why we're living in community outside of like mainstream society is because we feel like we've been lied to our whole lives. Well, and here we are again being lied to. Be honest. Yeah. Let's make a TV show.
But it's also the devil, you know, right? Like, I think if, like, to answer the question the person asked in the chat, if we did it again, I think we would all be making like a lot more content, right? Like the whole time, which is what some of us were doing. Like I made a video every day, right? But like, if we were doing a lot more and people already know about us and know that we're doing another season, they're going to be following it even closer, right? Like this live stream is the most we've ever had so far. It's just getting bigger, right? And it's not even on Max yet. It's not even on most of the platforms.
I know. This is actually just the beginning because most people don't watch live TV. So we're getting to kind of respond to like this first little beta test of viewers. But like when it's streamable is when people are actually gonna be watching this shit.
Yeah. And that's when it goes viral. And like if we did it again, I think that's what I would do differently. I would make a lot more content. I would make content with people like Tyler, there's not a single picture that has the two of us in it. Isn't that wild?
We took, right. I wish I had so many more photos to post on my Instagram. Like we have that one really cute photo of me, Tyler, a bee, Swoop, and Soul. And I love that photo. That's like one of the only photos. Like, why do we not? Because it just feels so much like you're being recorded the whole time. Yeah. That's why I keep being like, send me photos to post on my Instagram. I keep trying to get them to do that because I want to like promote the show and be like, watch me tonight, you know. But they don't send me anything, so I'm like, I should have just taken fucking photos. God damn it.
Yeah,
I know Jazz took a lot of video, a lot of photos.
True. I think a lot of us probably assumed that we would see most of what they were recording, right? Because it's like we didn't feel like we needed to be taking pictures and videos because like half a dozen people around us were doing it all the time.
Yeah,
it kind of felt like it was already happening, when in reality, like 99% of that no one will ever see.
I kind of wanted to send a message being like, hey, you know, you did us a little dirty a little bit. It would be really, really amazing for us. Better than any money you could give us if you like just edited a really happy little 30-second to a minute video of like the cool shit that we did. You know, like I know you have the best fucking footage of that, you know? That would be so amazing to just have like for like the Emberfield website, just have like an awesome reel of us doing cool shit. Like
put that in the contract for season 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in the contract.
We'll have to work on the contract for season 2 because there'll be a lot to iron out.
Yeah, for sure.
I reached out to them a while ago about something else and they never wrote back to me. So
and we need something, at least something, to make people want to join our cult. Like, how are they going to want to join our cult if it's just weird videos? We need a good video where we're building, you know, we're making a compost. So they showed a little bit of the kitchen build. That was nice.
Thank God. It was starting to look like the movie Holes, where we're just digging all the time.
Great movie. Great book.
Maybe that is what we did, you know, like maybe we didn't do enough for it to be an educational show. Like if we wanted,
like not every like step of the building process is like this awesome thing, but like a bunch of people carrying a log, that's exciting. Like they showed that. Like that is an exciting moment. Like
yeah, they did show that. Cool.
There was a lot of work that got to get to that point where we had
that's what I'm saying is like
drag all the logs out of the forest, delimb them, and then put them over the fire.
Yeah.
It was so much work.
This is the thing, mate. I've noticed
sometimes, CJ, that we got most of the work done on this 1 week. That was just like the visible work that was like easy. But like also, even before we got those trees and cut them down and brought them to the site, which is a huge amount of work. Most of the labor in any construction project is gathering materials. So like the wood that we even brought from the garden, the fact that wood had to be brought from the lumber mill, sorted, stacked, like that was tons of picking up one board of wood and putting it down again. Those were people that from the garden that didn't even want to be on camera once. They were just like, I support your project in Missouri, and I'm gonna prepare a fuckload of wood for you guys. Like those people deserve a fuck ton of credit. People from the garden that just prepared tons of perfect boards for us, and then we're just like, take this to Missouri. That's a lot of labor. So like the fact that we were suddenly able to be like zoom, 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 like we have a kitchen, is like there's so much pre stuff that went into that that we need to acknowledge too.
Yeah, we took the tin all the way from Tennessee, the tin roofing.
Yeah, the tin roofing, that was a trip. There was 2 drives.
How are you going to sell ad breaks about screwing in boards and collecting wood? That doesn't sell. That doesn't make ad money. That doesn't get people watching for them ads. It's what does is drama. And that's the thing. Like, they sold this show to us as a docu-reality, but actually when you look it up online, the TV show through like IMDb, it's just classified as a reality TV show. And that's what it is. It's not a documentary about how we build community. It's a reality show, which is just drama about people, you know, trying to live together, which is fine, but it's not what it was sold to us.
It also gives all of us an opportunity to talk about all the other stuff that's less interesting to the people who actually are interested in that.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right.
So
my mom just got home. I'm gonna say hi to her.
Oh my gosh.
Someone said I love how you're all like, I hope they get paid a lot because it must be hard to make us look bad. Julia said that. It's like, yeah, I mean, you know, they're doing a good job of what they're doing, right? Doesn't necessarily align with what we would like, but
I mean, it's crazy that I was telling my family that it's a pretty amazing in what their ability to edit, like everything timeline wise. Like we know like when certain things happen, and then they made it seem like it was happening, you know, right then. I was like, not that. Like Sheila was the very first cast member there, but they had Oak there first.
I think you were the first cast member there.
Well, I'm saying other than me. I'm saying like that was the first person that I saw was Sheila, and then Oak, then Jessica and Ricky.
Did you know that Heather was coming?
Mm-mm.
Oh, really? I thought you did.
One thing that it seems like they're not like you'll recall that I think the same day that Sheila arrived was the day of the storm. And
oh yeah,
it's looking like that might not make it into the final cut, and that's heartbreaking. That
it is. It is. There's a whole episode about that.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, and number 6.
But there's like 2 storm scenes, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think it's gonna be
a real storm scene and a fake storm scene.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But they're gonna combine them into one drama.
But that was wild. The day that Sheila showed up, like the kitchen being ripped apart. Oh my, that was wild.
Went from like 75 degrees to 45 degrees in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Nuts. That was like extremely dangerous. Like I don't think people truly understand. Like, there was real danger of a tornado happening those days, because it's all about hot wind and cold wind hitting each other, and that was like a perfect storm. And luckily, we just got a shit ton of wind and a bunch of rain.
Yeah, and we all got a ton of video of that too. I was just looking back. I should like repost some of the videos I made back then, because we have a ton of content from back then. It's just hard because like none of it matches up with the storyline of the show, because it's like so Tarantino'd and like it looks like so the episode description says all that, and it's like a tree of
I mean,
are fighting.
All right,
how to stop her. Get out of the kitchen.
You guys have?
Sorry to interrupt you. My mom's home and we're gonna rewatch the episode with her, so we're gonna leave.
Okay,
Bye guys.
have fun.
Thanks for a great combo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to get going too.
Bye. Bye, Zans. You did a great mediation in this episode.
Oh yeah, that was good.
I'm happy they showed that, and I'm happy that you did that in a way, like showed a calm person making an attempt to not just have a screaming match on television. So that was awesome.
Yes, and congratulations on your redemption arc. Everyone's so proud of you.
Thank you. All right, bye guys.
Bye.
All right.
It is funny the way the story
I'll
is.
see you guys next time.
See you later.
How do I leave? There we go. Leave.
Red button.
Bye.
It's funny how the story went.
I don't know how to. Oh, okay, there we go. There's like ban forever, but I don't want to ban Tree forever. I just want to remove him, so I figured it out. It's interesting how. What were we just talking about?
Redemption arcs and stuff.
Yeah.
Dan's mediating.
It's like, who is the cult leader? Originally, it's Patrick, and then it's like maybe it's Maya, maybe it's Julia or Tree, or it's very clearly none of them, right? And it's like a yo-yo, like just bouncing from person to person, you know. And then it seems like it's back to Tree, right? Like him and Oak talking about it, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm very clearly not the leader. And he's like, yeah, but like people look up to you. And it's like, that's because I'm nice.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's all groups of people. All groups of people work that way. It's interesting.
I think that might have been the first time that we saw like mediation in this episode, that we saw like a taste of the mediation that we try to do. And I was really pleased to see that. That was another part of what made it maybe my favorite episode so far.
Yeah. I'm very concerned about the memes that people will post, especially about Oak.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot that like is very, very simple archetypes, I guess, that that either the production company or the editors made. And yeah, they had a couple very simple, yeah, tiptoeing a fat phobia line, definitely Zans.
Yeah. Yeah, like the thing with the trailer, I was like, oh my God. Because it's an empty trailer, it'll do that for anyone who sits on it. But like the way that they staged the shot where he's like, hey, can you help me? And suddenly like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like, I hope that the criticism that people are able to articulate is like the criticisms that are deserved and valid, right? Because it's the most frustrating thing when like there are legitimate criticisms of his behavior, like the way he treated Jag, right? Like that really pissed me off. And it's like, you don't have to say something horrible to criticize the bad behavior. Like you're like, don't be worse, right? Like it's hard. So I hope that people are able to kind of stay in a good light on that. But I'm looking forward to the next episode and seeing the battle between Team Tree and Team Patrick. And I'm not even sure like how they're gonna do that. Like what team am I on? I have no idea. Right?
I think you're gonna be on Team Sexy Party.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think were you still there by the time by May?
No,
I think you might have left at the end of April.
I left before the party.
Yeah. It was at the end of April that you left?
Yeah.
Or like May 1st, maybe.
Somewhere around there. I left almost at the end of the garden gathering, right before I was at the garden for like 2 days and then I went back to California. Dan says, I might be portrayed as Team Sexy Party. I did go to the party. I'm not aware. I know there was a party. I don't really know anything about the party, but they did ask me about throwing sex parties in San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
Which I talked about, and so I assume those quotes will be cut out and moved over to whatever this party is that Tree was throwing.
Possibly, possibly not.
There's some interesting similarities. They asked me to like compare and contrast, like what are the similarities and differences. I'm like, oh, there's actually like a lot of interesting similarities. The number of people being under the Dunbar number is really important for avoiding social problems with larger groups, and like the importance of consent, the importance of consensus-based decision making and community agreements. And
how long were they interviewing you for?
I think an hour and a half.
Okay, that's decent.
And I was wearing the same like cloak, and so it'll look the same.
Party wizard.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish they would have. Tyler mentioned, I thought he was kind of hinting that there would be a piece about it, but my pocket snacks. When I was walking around all the time, I always had like a bottle of Prosecco and a bunch of snacks in my pockets, and I would give them to everyone. That's nice. I think people should do stuff like that more, That's the right vibe to bring.
There are a lot of things that probably would be able to show up if they were to just have like 8 episodes instead of 6, because condensing everything into 6 episodes means it's just gonna be a whirlwind. Like as you were saying about how there's a bunch of things that were just glossed over, that that kind of the pace is really, really, really fast. And there's lots of like people aren't adequately introduced. It seems like it's skipping a step here and there, like especially with this episode in Oak all of a sudden becoming the guy that is kind of at odds with everyone all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like it seems like there's this and there's this, and then he's mad at everyone. Like,
yeah. I love that they talked about his like late night screaming conversation on the phone every night. Where were you at? Were you up on the hill?
I was camped right next to you.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. On the other side. There was like a bush in between us. Yeah.
Yes, I was between you and Jag's bus.
Right. Yeah, okay. So then you will have heard his like constant late night screaming conversations with his wife on the phone.
There was actually one time when I was having a phone call with some of my friends back in Carbondale, and he was on the phone in his tent at the same time, and I was thinking, wow, this is noticeable how like I feel like I'm in vacation mode like constantly, like it's I'm on a cloud. I was on a cloud the whole time. I guess that wasn't very dramatic or anything, but I was having a good time the whole way through. And I was telling my friends what a good time I was having. And meanwhile, he's like bringing up all sorts of complaints, getting really heated and stuff. And I'm thinking, seems like life is rough for you, man.
Yeah. Well, it's like he's doing it to himself,
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Well, his complaints were like, the studio should be putting me up in a 5-star hotel and driving me out here to shoot my scenes, and like, why aren't there Navy SEALs teaching me survival skills? It's like, what are you talking about? So I'm glad that made it into the show and everyone can see that, because it's like, this was not normal. Like, And it's not like people were being mean to him. People were like I wish they would have included like there were multiple times when I was on camera asking him to help me with stuff that would be like a low lift, like um just cutting vegetables, for dinner, or helping to put like branches in the trellises, or like there's a lot of stuff that you can do if you're even without standing up, you know. Um, there's a ton that you can do, and it's something that's really important to me is like the universal accessibility of being a part of one of these communities.
Yeah.
And at some point I was like, you don't have to build like I have a back injury. I can't build buildings. You don't have to build buildings. It's not required that you're building buildings. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to stay past your 10 days. Like you could just hang out and then leave and not stay, but I think he heard that and he took it in a totally different direction than how I meant it, which is like you can just be on vacation now,
Zen said she chopped veggies and cooked with them at least 2 times. So yeah, there was that. I mean, there were a lot of people that were rather kind to him, and Zen was one of them.
And nobody was like mean to him. Like he was mean to a bunch of people, but like I don't remember any example where anyone was like mean to him.
Or at least kind of critical, having a critical air of everything. Like he might have come in with a lot of expectations. I don't know. And then like everything.
But like his microbe thing was just him being an asshole, right? Yeah. Like he wasn't being critical; he was just being an asshole, And like the things he was saying about like Heather is gonna divorce you. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, why would you say something like that to someone? Yeah, it was wild. I need to figure out how to make the chat be on the. I just got a new computer because my old computer died, and I don't have it all set up to work well with TikTok Live.
The chat, you say?
Yeah, the chat for Zoom to be on the screen.
There should be a button in the bottom, like if you mouse over, there should be participant chat.
It comes up separate. It doesn't come up in the. I don't know. I'll have to play around with it.
Are there any more like audience questions or?
People said I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. Can't wait to see the new episode. It's mostly like people saying like make more content. I don't think most people know what a cult is, like the word communism. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. We talk about that a lot in the Facebook group. Yeah, cult. Like
there are a lot of people that really have that 8th grade social studies education that tells them about communism.
Yeah. Communism is when the government takes your cow. Like, okay, yeah, no.
Communism doesn't work, and that's why we fought a Cold War against communism, because it doesn't work. We fought it to save everyone from themselves. We're just that altruistic.
Yeah, it's like, who won World War II? It wasn't us. We were barely involved. Yeah.
Communism is against human nature. That's why it took 69 years for the Soviet Union to collapse.
Well, and then like it's not even a good example of communism, right? Like you can't have state communism. Like communism is stateless.
I mean, movements toward it. There's like all we have is movements towards things. Like movements toward anarchism is all we're going to have of anarchism in the conceivable future.
Well, I think like if you take the idea of the commune that Marx was working off of, and he's trying to extrapolate, how could we do a world of that? Like maybe you can't, right? Like that's not the same thing. The idea that communes work, the idea that this works, is not the same thing as a national government. It just doesn't extrapolate that way, right? And like the implementations have never been super great, right? And it's because like this is not that. Like going into the forest with your friends and growing food together is not the same thing as Soviet Union.
Like, it's not the same thing as seizing the state apparatus.
And like you know, like worker organization. It's just not the same thing. That's a totally different thing with kind of similar ideas. But I'm generally critical of Marx. Like I think that like there are a lot of problems with Marx, right? So like I much prefer syndicalism. I much prefer like let's focus on like projects and working on things together and like getting stuff done. Not
Something
like
that has a horizon within this time, within this lifetime, that we can
yeah,
achieve within this lifetime, and that points towards something else as well, instead of like putting all our eggs in like a big Hail Mary pass that the future generations will catch or something. I don't know.
right. But like in this project, all of the tension and conflict and drama was about who gets to control decision making. And it's like well, who cares? Like why don't you find something to do, right? Like why are we focused on who got the most things they wanted in the vote instead of like who's actually doing anything, right? Like let's focus on like a project and like why don't we start planting food instead of like fighting over who gets to decide whether we plant food, you know?
A couple of years ago, I started thinking about like radical clans and tribes and stuff as a way of being able to expand beyond Dunbar's number. And I was thinking that maybe the ways at first I was thinking it'll kind of be like splits or whatever or divisions along ideological lines. But these days, I'm thinking that it's more going to be along the lines of what do we do on a day-to-day basis? Like
Yeah.
what is our like what are our lifestyles like, and I think that's going to inform it a lot more.
Shayna has joined the chat. Shayna has really excellent criticisms of this type of organization and this organization specifically, which I have really enjoyed listening to over the years. I've been friends with Shayna since a few years ago. And we actually talked about a lot of this stuff before I ever was a part of any of this. And it's really like Shayna's perspective has really informed a lot of my decision making and the way that I approach conflict in the organization. And obviously, like we don't have to get into that, but I think probably Shayna and I have like weird history in common, like really specific weird things in common that led us to have this very unusual and different experience of like radical anarcho-communism at scale and how it works and how it doesn't. And yeah, it's very strange that we have that in common because it's like a weird thing to have in common. And the question is, who's going to do the dishes after the revolution? And this is the topic of the new episode of Tree and Julia's podcast that I was on, where we talk about morning after revolutionaries, which is this argument from Zizek about like, I would sell my mother into slavery to see V for Vendetta Part 2, because like, what are they going to do next? There's no next step. Everyone's in the streets, everything is torn down. Okay, now what? When do things start getting better for people on the ground in any meaningful way? And how? And how is that related to this like everyone in the street tearing things down? Right? Like we have this enthusiasm of like we're doing it. It's like, okay, like what are you doing and why does it matter to people? And when does it matter to people? I don't know, what do you think about that? I think we've talked about this before.
What's on the other side of this? What like
What's the morning after the revolution like?
Mhm. Once we've had a ruthless critique of all that exists, once the movement to abolish the present state of things has taken on speed, has taken on momentum,
Yeah.
then where is it going? Yeah.
Then what? Yeah. Assuming you get everything you want, then what?
Yeah.
Most people don't think about that.
There's some theorists that would say that as soon as one contradiction is abolished, then it creates new contradictions in its wake. I've kind of been grappling with that for a little while. I think it's a good model for some things. Like there's I don't love the word contradiction, like opposition. I like the word opposition better, but there's constantly new directions that history goes in and more things that bubble to the surface, and it's hard, if not impossible, to predict. But there's always going to be I mean, one thing that I think of a lot of what if we are, what if we have this success, this our vision is successful, then
or what does it look like?
Yeah.
How is it meaningful for lots of people?
Yeah. And I think a lot of how meaning is going to happen is instead of being like humans versus large suprahuman structures, then a lot of it is going to go back to humans versus nature, kind of. That's my best answer.
Okay. Zizek's answer is he's a Stalinist, so Stalinism is his answer. I think for me, my answer is why you see here, right? Like we've built 6 of these now. Hundreds of people are living for free forever because of what we've done, and it's going to be more. And hopefully, we inspire some kind of exponential growth of like lots of the people who are involved doing more of these on their own and starting new organizations. A bunch of us are currently in the process of starting a new nonprofit to do a lot of this stuff in the Southwest. We should be able to announce that this week.
Well,
so like right there, it's a couple more, right? And so it's like how many people are able to now live for free forever and have their basic needs provided for through mutual aid and permaculture, and that's the morning after. It's people waking up and being able to go get some eggs from the chickens and eat them, and like there's no expectations beyond that, right? And I see that as the answer to this problem. Someone said, can you explain Dunbar's number? You've mentioned it several times. Do you want to take that one?
Sure. So there is I think an anthropologist or a sociologist that doing a bunch of research on not just indigenous people comparative stuff, but also looking at a lot of different groups. And I think churches were a big part of this as well. Notice that the sort of cohesion in a group would start to really drop off. The sort of tight-knit feeling would really start to decline after once you get up into the 100s or something. And I think he estimated that over about 150 is the point where you no longer have any of that remnant of a sense of tight-knit. And the way that results, that ties into psychology, is that that number of 150 is about how many relationships, how many active relationships you can have, combined with being able to know in your head the relationships of each one of those people with each other. So you have 149 plus 148 plus 147, like the summation of 1 through 150. And that's like 7,500 or so individual binary how are these two people together combinations, and that's kind of what our heads can hold at one time.
There's another half to it though, which is the number is actually 30 to 50. So the group of 30 to 50 that up to 2 or 3 of them can come together for temporary shared purposes, but then that they should not stay together forever, and the group of 30 to 50 is what humans really evolved to live in. And then the Dunbar limit is 150, like max. And that like if there is some kind of shared like purpose historically, like if there was some like tribal war, maybe like several groups get together on both sides, they fight it out, right? But they're not like permanently together. And a really good example of this that I like to point to is the Arcasanti group, because they have 3 different groups of 30 to 50, and together they're about 100, right? And so they each have their different separate project and then come together to work on certain things, but like they're sort of separate but together at the same time in that limit. So Dunbar's number is kind of also gives us the idea that like that's the right number of people to have in a commune. So all of these communities that we've built are designed for 30 to 50 full-time residents. So all of the infrastructure is designed to be enough for that. And then it's also designed to be able to grow to accommodate up to 200 for up to a couple of weeks, up to a couple of times a year. So you have enough infrastructure in terms of compost toilets and water supply and rain catchment to refill the water supply and other capacities that you need, and like kitchen space even, to be able to accommodate up to like 100 or 200 people for a short time. And one of the advantages to that is outreach. So at the garden, I don't think they're doing it right now because most it's south for the winter, but like during the spring gathering and the fall gathering, there's weekly community pizza party where everyone from the community can come, and a lot of neighbors will come and people will make pizzas, and it's a big gathering of like 100 or 200 people like every Saturday night. And that's fine for like 1 day a week, right? Like the infrastructure couldn't support that many all the time. It's 30 to 50 all the time, but then occasionally it can swell to support more. And to support that, they just added another compost toilet. So now there's another double compost toilet to support these more frequent events there. So it figures into like how are we supposed to live together, but it also figures into like infrastructure planning in a big way.
Yeah, there's a couple other organizations that I've been in that had gatherings of about that size.
So what's that? It's difficult to unlearn hyper individualism.
Certainly, certainly.
It's funny because I often hear people give the example of like the family, like every family is communist. It's like, I don't know if that's like, have you met my family? I feel like they're not, right? But I think like the stereotype of like a healthy family is like all the things that like healthy families do that most families don't are like communist vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being supportive and relying on each other for ties of esteem and all the other stuff that humans really ought to be doing. But like even the nuclear family, like Tree pointed out in the previous somewhere, that like the nuclear family is a product of the Industrial Revolution and like the enclosure of the commons, and like it's this idea that like instead of living together, your family should all split up and have separate mortgages and pay for separate everything, because that's better for finance, and like the point of the world is finance. It's not like human well-being, right?
And it kind of also serves a kind of reactionary goal, a reactionary telos, where that because the reactionary worldview sees each person as like a replicator, a Darwinian model of a war, constant war of all against all, and just a race to reproduce, kind of.
Yeah.
And there's the constant question, why aren't you getting married and having kids and stuff? And that's something that gets tossed around or floated around a whole lot. It's a big part of a lot of people's lives, and many people can't have a whole lot of difficulty finding significance to their lives outside of their own offspring. And
yeah, I think most people's lives don't have significance outside of their offspring, right? Like most people never have like a purpose for their lives. This is something Dennett talks about a lot, and he's talking about in the context of atheism in his case. But he talks about like the way people get really mad if you invite them to question their fundamental assumptions, because as he puts it, there's no polite way to invite people to consider that they've wasted their lives on a lie. We should expect them to get mad. And in the same way, like when we talk about so many of these topics, like food waste, it's like 2/3 of our food goes to the garbage can in this country, and 1 in 4 kids goes to bed hungry. That's insane, right? But it's like, instead of acknowledging that, like the popular narrative is to try to excuse it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To call those kids lazy. Like they should be in child labor or something so they can eat. And it's like you're talking about kids, right? Like,
and justify the forms of oppression that exist.
Yeah. But like it's really hard and uncomfortable for people to get to the point of questioning the things they've always assumed to be fundamentally true about the world, which have harmed them. And this is called the cycle of socialization in sociology. And there's this step where you ascertain something contradictory about your certainties about the world. And socialization tells us like it's always been that way, just go with it. But the cycle of liberation is like, wait a minute, something is wrong. Don't just go with it. Let's explore that. Let's pull the thread, right? Like
Turn towards
it all down and like start over with better ideas.
Turn towards it instead of away from it.
Yeah. And that's hard and it's uncomfortable and people don't like it. Especially reality TV watchers, I have found. There's a really good William Gibson book about reality TV that's like I relate to many of the situations after talking with some of the audience members. Someone said, I read about enclosure of the comments. Oh, I think it's Carl. Carl said that. Yeah. Enclosure of the comments. It used to be like private property didn't exist until like a couple hundred years ago.
Or it was sort of like noble property, managed by nobles, but a lot of it was kind of
feudal system,
actively managed.
Yeah, the feudal system was like some lord owns the territory, and peasants would be able to come and work for him and grow food, and then the sheriff takes half of it, and that's the tax, and then they don't kill you, right? You weren't allowed to hunt meat, for example. That's poaching. Only nobles were allowed to hunt meat. If poor people tried to hunt meat, that's poaching. They're stealing from the Lord. That belongs to the Lord, right? They were only allowed to grow grains and eat grains. And then they had to give half of what they grew to the Lord, right? The commons was this idea out of the Scottish Enlightenment, when like Adam Smith era, that like we should put fences up and divide all the land into parcels, and then we could sell limited interests in the parcels in form of deeds, and we could create this whole financialized system of real estate and like private property. This is like a brand new idea, historically speaking, and there are a lot of harmful side effects of the enclosure movement, including obviously the nuclear family, the Industrial Revolution, the fact that families don't live together anymore, the fact that so many of our historical norms are effectively illegal, or at least socially, frowned upon. The way humans evolved to live is not allowed anymore, and it's causing enormous harms for people.
Yeah, plural households is one that that I find very. I mean, that's one thing that I've feel a strong desire for. Having lots of people living in reasonably close proximity. Not necessarily as separate units, but having like as the same kind of unit, I guess. And then that's partly why I'm drawn to communes like this.
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't really show that. They don't really show like most of the people there are families, and there's like a lot of kids there. There's a lot of pets there, and they showed Ren a little bit, but she was all blurred out, which is hilarious because she was like so eager to be on camera, and like when I met her, she was like just born, and now she's like talking and running around, and she's like trying to be like, "Hi, I'm on the camera." And she like wants to be really cute for the camera, and it's like they're not going to show that. Like, I don't know.
There would have been there would have been objections from the parents,
Sure.
and understandably so.
Well, I think they were fine with it. They let her do it.
There's also another kid that I think in an episode or two ago, when Hoka is doing a ceremony, we hear a younger child saying "aho" along with everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So someone said, when people ask, when will you have kids, or what do you do for a living? All I hear is, what's your individual GDP? Yeah, I think like,
what is your rate of reproduction? What is your rate of capital reproduction? And what is your rate of organismal reproduction?
Yeah. One of my first econ classes I ever took, the professor said something I'll never forget, which is like, economic freedom is not what you think it is. That we have an economic system that's designed around the idea that like you have to trade all of your time for your next meal over and over forever, and until you're not useful to anyone anymore for any capital, and then you're discarded, right? And that the real measure of economic freedom is how long you could stop going into the office and keep eating. So for most people, it's like a few days. Some people
For me, that's 1 year.
For what?
Right now, I'm about 1 year or so, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, so for most people, it's a few days. For some people, it's a few weeks. For some people, it's a few months. And like his claim was like really the only people who it's forever is like billionaires. So like your goal should be to become a billionaire. And it's like the way to become a billionaire is to make that whole problem worse in a way that benefits you. You extract the value from those people, and then you get to keep it and hoard it. And it's like
you give yourself a leg up by pushing other people down. And that's how owning capital works. That's how owning stock works. That's how owning a whole bunch of financial instruments works. But there's a way to get yourself up, as we're trying to propose, that doesn't involve pushing other people down.
Yeah.
That's the game plan.
This whole idea builds on the enclosure movement, and it's called neoclassicalism. And we teach it as economics, but it's not the field of economics. It's this very limited slice of the field of economics, and it doesn't work, and every single part of it is wrong. And if you make it past the intro level in economics, everything else you learn throughout your academic career in economics is that everything you learned in intro is wrong. But intro is taught like a state religion, and it's this idea of neoclassicalism. And the reality is like that's a new idea, and the world worked just fine before that. And lots of people have much greater economic freedom than any billionaire, because we can just go out here for months or years and be fine and never have to go to work, right? Elon can't do that. He doesn't have that freedom. He's not a free person, right? In the same way that like anyone who lives at any commune is, where you can just hang out indefinitely, plant some food. You don't ever have to go to work, right? So like this kind of freedom is actually much freer, even than being the most successful person in the world of capitalism, where you become exceedingly more and more constrained in your freedom all the time.
And another critique that can be brought in is that even the people that are successful under capitalism, they end up having a sort of Damocles over their heads, and that there's a threat that someone might take what they've gotten, that someone might threaten their wealth, and so they have to be constantly defending that financial wealth when they have it, that monetary wealth. Monetary wealth constantly needs to be defended, and in some ways it's hard to define like that class without having like people that are a lower class, and so that creates a kind of opposition that has a whole lot of tension in society.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people have seen the images. It might be from Sao Paulo in Brazil, of like the really nice condos with their tennis courts, and on the other side you have these favela slums.
Yeah, it's wild. And the difference here is we illegalize that.
Well, also we force everybody to drive cars, and our equivalents are I guess mobile home parks or so, and everybody with their drives to the rich side of town for the menial labor or whatever.
Right. I mean, we have enormous camps of people who don't have a house, who don't have anywhere to live, right? We have 500,000 officially. It's probably more than that in America. And we focus on punishing them for it instead of helping them out of it, like Bogota did, like Curitiba did, like so many cities in Latin America that did a really good job of converting favelas into thriving communities. We tried to punish them out of it. It's wild. I really liked, Carl points out what Tree said. The conversation between Tree and Tyler at the end was not the real conversation that they had. But at one point, Tyler said he wants to create a community for when the like apocalypse happens, right? And Tree said he wants to create these places so that the world doesn't end. I thought that was good.
There's those aren't mutually quite so contradictory, I want to say. Because one thing that a lot of people that I'm in networks with that we're saying is that collapse isn't a single moment. Collapse is a period. Like if you talk to indigenous people, they will say they've been experiencing the apocalypse for the last 530 years or so. Um, and like it's been their collapse, like constant, ceaseless collapse, just that whole time. Um, and some people that say when they talk about the Roman Empire, which apparently a whole bunch of guys can't go for a couple of days without thinking about it or whatever, that that didn't all happen at once. All empires, so almost all empires, it takes a while. They're in decline for a while, and there's no one point where they were the predominant power once and then they're gone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rot that seeps in a lot of ways. There's a lot of imbalances that are teetering before they, but there's a long time coming before that action actually happens.
Yeah.
And people are saying that that's probably what we look like in America, that we're in an early stage of collapse. And that's not going to look like the government just disappearing. It's going to look like services being withdrawn. It's going to look like roads not being maintained and a whole bunch of other infrastructure not being maintained. And so we're going to get this like piecemeal destruction and maybe eventual balkanization, but it's going to happen bit by bit. And that gives us a chance to respond to that and say, we have something that we can, as a stopgap measure, that's communes in the woods. And that's possibly would allow us to respond a lot better by not having to do it all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk a lot on this channel about complex systems collapse and why we should be thinking about it that way and not shit hits the fan, because that's not realistic. But it's also true to say that there are tipping points when suddenly things are much worse. And a lot of them are like for example, people talk about like the threat of AI. It's like a very fashionable thing to talk about. But like I'm like, we don't have that long. Like there are so many things that are going to get us first. Like the power grid, for example, is like, it's shocking that it's still going. Like knowing how bad it is, knowing how bad it has been for so long, and the fact that it's worse every year, and that we have thousands of attacks by alt-right groups since that report came out 10 years ago about how fragile it is. It's shocking that it hasn't already happened. And like that's coming soon.
Also, that won't all happen at once because there are 3 power grids. You have East, West, and Texas, kind of. And I think the ERCOT system in Texas, that's probably going to be the first one. Like we've always seen rumbling pre-foreshocks of the earthquake 2 years ago or so.
It's not correct though. The grids are not independent of each other. They have interties, so they are connected and relying on each other. And the prime movers of the, well, I'm not going to get into like the details of like what the report highlighted as like potential causes, obviously, which is also why I don't share the report with people or give too much details about it. But it's not the case that it is not going to happen all at once. There's 22 different ways it could happen all at once. So they forecast 90% population decline in the US in the first 12 months, and it will take up to 36 months to get it back up. And a big part of my focus after I read that report is like, how do I get it? Like, what's different about the other 10% that they're just fine? And how do we make it 11 or 12% that are fine? And I think one of the biggest ways is building places where people can be okay without needing any of these supply chains or infrastructure that are so fragile.
And maybe local distribution networks, because it's a lot easier to build something that is within a 100-degree radius than it is when you're doing everything within 1,000, did I say degree radius? 100-mile radius.
Distribution of what?
Like if everything is done within 100 miles, it's a lot easier to get everything to fit together.
You mean everything?
Rather than if your supply chains are worldwide.
You know, it's interesting. It used to be that way before refrigeration.
Yeah,
your food was all local.
And the reason why there's about 5 to 10 miles, or I want to say 10 miles distance between towns in a county or so, is that it's the distance that a person could, or sometimes a horse, could drag a wagon. Like you'd take your wagon and you'd wheel it into town. You'd spend maybe 2 hours taking it to market on market day, usually Saturday. And then at the end of the day, after you'd sold your goods and maybe bought other people's goods, you'd then walk your cart 2 hours back to where you lived. And you go to the nearest hub and you make circles around each town, and it's about 5 miles that those circles extend before they bump into each other. And that's like the coverage of each town.
Carl points out that this is largely the stated goal of the Permaculture Mutual Aid Network. So the Permaculture Mutual Aid Network is a program of a nonprofit called the People's Project, which we co-created 2 or 3 years ago. The idea is that we're going to build as many of these communities as we can, as quickly as we can, in order to create a network of places that can provide for the basic needs of as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, with the goal of helping as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, to be able to live without money. So that is the auspices under which direction is which this project, everything's backwards, I hate that, was created. And this is the 6th one that we've built, these communities like this, under the Permaculture Mutual Aid Network. Some of the comments, I'm not exactly sure what they mean. So. This one did really well. A lot of people came to this one, so that's good. It's been over 2 hours.
So it has, yeah. I could feel my meeting.
Yeah. Any other topics you wanted to cover before we go?
I'm fresh out. I was thinking next week will be another good opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll be an interesting episode. So, All right, I guess we're gonna call it. So we'll see everyone next week.
Till then.
Good night.